from chapter 5, verses 20 to 29, that is 20 until the end of the chapter. Bharataya pradhibodhivata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purane Mahabharatam Advayamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachaluramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Na prahishyet priyam prapya nudvijet prapya cha priyam sthira buddhirasam mudho brahmavid brahmani sthitaha bahya sparsheshvasaktatma vidatyatmane yat sukham sabrahma yuktatma sukhamakshayamashnute yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayo naya evate adyandavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha shaknoti haivayah sodhum praksharira vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhe naraha yonta sukontara rama tathantarjyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam Brahma bhutodhigacchati labhante brahma nirvanam rishayah kshena kalmashaha chinnadvaidhayatatmanaha sarva bhutahite rataha kama krodha vimam yati no brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam sparshan kritva bahirbahyans chakshushayischayamantro bhruvo pranapano samo kritva nasabhyantaracharino yatendriya mano buddhir munir moksha parayanaha vigatecha bhaya krohya sada mukta eva saha bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati Om Tatsaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama Panchamodhyaya So this evening we'll continue where we left off last time in chapter 5. And last time we ended on verse 19. And verses 18 and 19 were two very important verses, which said, just to bring us up to where we begin again on 20, said, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shwapake Cha Pandita Samadarshinaha. So the learned ones see the same Brahman in a Brahmin endued with learning and humility, in a cow, in an elephant, and even in a dog, as well as in an eater of dog's meat. And so again, the meaning is obvious in this one, that the knower of Brahman sees Brahman everywhere and makes no distinction between high and low, good and bad, etc., but sees the same Brahman everywhere. That you see in people like in Sri Ramakrishna, you see it in Swami Vivekananda and the Holy Mother, you see it in Pauhari Baba, in Jesus and the Buddha, and so many great souls. Besides, and not just in world teachers like that, but in great illumined souls, seeing the same Brahman everywhere. That here at this level of existence, the social level of the sensory world, we make all kinds of distinctions for social reasons, for sometimes for practical reasons, and sometimes there's no practical reason for it. It's just a human tendency to make distinctions. But when one rises to the level of seeing Brahman everywhere, one finds it impossible to see distinctions. In fact, Swami Brahmananda used to say that he had to bring his mind down several levels from its normal state. He being a realized soul, he had to bring his mind down several levels from its normal state just in order to train his disciples, that is, to correct them for their mistakes. Because when his mind was in its normal state, he said, who is to correct who? You see, everything is God, and everyone is the divine being. Then who is to correct whom? Anyway, that is the state of the illumined soul. And then 19, Ihaiva tairjita sargo yesham samye sthitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmanite sthitaha. So ihaiva tairjita sargo. Here itself they have defeated, they have conquered samsara, they have conquered creation, that is the world of duality that we see. Yesham samye sthitam manaha, whose mind is established in sameness. Whose mind is established in sameness. Nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmanite sthitaha. It's established in the sameness, in the same, seeing the same Brahman, free of all defects. Tasmad brahmanite sthita. Therefore, they are established in Brahman because they see the same Brahman, which is free of all defects. They see that same Brahman free of defects in all beings. And so, how can they see the faults of others? How can they see the flaws in others? And so that is, from a philosophical standpoint, that explains the Holy Mother's extraordinary acceptance of all, her extraordinary ability to see all as her own children, all to see all with equal love. As she said that just as Sharat, Swami Saradananda, is my son, so Amjad, the dacoit who had robbed and killed people, she saw him as her son, equally as her son, as Swami Saradananda. And because that was because she saw Brahman in all beings, or for a non-dualist, which Holy Mother was, she saw herself in all beings. She saw all as her own self. She referred to them as her children, but that was because they were the children of her own being. And And so, so these two verses, it establishes the standpoint that all beings should be looked upon as the same. That is, yes, in ordinary life, we have to make distinctions in order to lead an ordinary life. That is, if somebody comes to harm you or harm your property or something, then you have a right to react. But we should gradually come to the point where we can do that, where we can respond appropriately to any situation and still see that everything is the divine play, that everything is God playing with God. You can call the police on an intruder or something, but remembering that yes, the police are God, the intruder is God, the situation itself is God. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagno brahmanahutam brahmaivatena gandhavyam brahma karma samadhina. One attains to Brahman who sees Brahman in every action, in the midst of every action. That which you, the offering is Brahman, the ritual is Brahman, the fire into which you make the offering is Brahman, the one who offers is Brahman, and the action itself is Brahman. And so one who sees Brahman in every action attains to Brahman. So, as I said last time, Swami Vivekananda said that he had come to destroy the idea that there is a vyavaharika satya, that is, that there is a practical realm where these truths are not active. Of course he knew that there was a vyavaharika state of consciousness where you see distinction, otherwise he wouldn't have been speaking words, he would have been in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But what he meant was when he said that I have come to destroy this idea of the vyavaharika satya, he meant this idea that in the practical world, these advaitic ideas, non-dualistic ideas, have no practicality, that they're not to be practiced here. That here is the realm of distinction where we have to make distinctions between high and low and honoring some people and looking down on others because society tells us to. No, that he said, I've come to destroy that idea. So now taking up verse 20, where we to start tonight. Na prahishyet priyam prapya no dvijet prapya cha priyam stira buddhira sambodho brahmavid brahmani sthitaha. So here he's talking, continuing, he's not talking here about sameness in the same sense as he was in the previous two verses, but he is speaking of sameness, that is, sameness in one's experience of good and bad, pleasure and pain, that is your own, that which comes to you. So previously, the previous two verses, the way that you look on all others, see God within all others, see all others as Brahman, see all others as yourself, because in Vedanta those all come to the same truth. But here he's talking about na prahishyet priyam prapya, having gotten that which is dear to you, that which you desired, that which you wanted, having got that, one should not delight in getting that which is dear. No dvijait prapya cha priyam, nor should you be dejected by getting that which is undear to you. That is, when something happens, when something comes your way, an experience or a thing comes your way that is unpleasant, then don't allow that to make you dejected. So when you get that which is naturally pleasing to you, doesn't mean that you can't accept it. It means to keep the mind still. When you get that which is unpleasing to you, to keep the mind still, to be the same in both. So again, the previous two verses, the sameness towards other beings, towards the way that you look on the world around you. Here, the experiences that come to you, to be the same in the midst of those. Stira buddhira sambodho brahmavid brahmani stitaha. So the brahmavid, the knower of Brahman, who is stira buddhi, whose mind is steady. Mind is steady. It's not overcome by pleasure and not overcome by the unpleasant. It's the same in both. So this Stira Buddhi, who is a Brahmavit, a knower of Brahman, a Sambudho, who is not deluded, who is free from delusion. That is the delusion of thinking that this world is a place where I'm going to find fulfillment. This is the world where I'm going to find complete fulfillment. That's a very difficult thing to realize that no, this world is not where I'm going to find fulfillment, because we're born with that idea. We've had it, if you believe in reincarnation, we've had it for many, many lifetimes, looking for fulfillment here. Society teaches us, parents, not to blame parents because they're part of the same world, but parents teach us to seek fulfillment here. School teaches us, friends teach us, society teaches us, billboards teach us, television teaches us, movies teach us, magazines, newspapers, everything teaches us that this is where you're going to find fulfillment. This is where you find fulfillment. This is where happiness is to be had. And you find happiness by avoiding things that make you unhappy. So avoid that and do these things, get these things, buy these things, and you'll be happy. So for ages we've been told, and in the modern world, with the extraordinary reach of modern advertising and the psychological subtlety of modern advertising, that's even a stronger effect on the mind. The pervasive effect of advertising and the psychological subtlety with which it's done. They're very good, very interesting videos on YouTube about Bernays, what was his name? He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. He immigrated to this country, Bernal Bernays. It starts with B-E-R-N-A, and I'm not sure how it ends. I can't remember right now. But anyway, he was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And though Sigmund Freud, of course, was interested in psychology because he saw that people were suffering, and he was trying to figure out what it is that makes people suffer and how to get them over suffering. And from his standpoint, and not that we accept that as a way to overcome suffering, but he was sincere and he was a scientist and he was trying to help people. But his nephew took those ideas, came to America and commercialized them. And so he was behind, and again, these videos explain the whole process, how he was behind the spread of modern advertising campaigns. He was the one who introduced smoking cigarettes to women. Before that, it was considered very unladylike for women to smoke. And so the tobacco companies were in a quandary: how do we expand our market? Because everything in the modern economic system is based on expanding your market. You can't stay stationary. You want to keep growing. You want to keep getting your market into more and more, your product into more and more markets. So half of the population is not smoking and doesn't want to smoke because it's considered socially unseemly. So how to change that? So this Bernays, or whatever his name is. Bernays, yes, thank you. The miracle of Google. So Bernays, he made an advertising campaign that showed women smoking to flaunt their independence. That they gave the image to the population in the United States that the women who smoke, they are independent, they are free. They have become self-actualized. They have become free from male domination. And it worked tremendously. It worked phenomenally. And suddenly a smoking woman became a free woman. That became the image of freedom. That became the image of being authentic and self-motivated, self-actualizing. And so the smoking spread to the other half of the population. And so not just in smoking, that was one of his early campaigns where he was immensely successful. Because again, he had studied his uncle's work, and just by knowing how the mind works, by giving an image and associating it with the product. And then the people see the image and the product and think, oh, if I have that product, I will be like that. So again, in the modern world, with the intensity of advertising and the prevalence of advertising everywhere, then all the more do we have that idea that we have to consume, we have to buy, we have to improve our products all of the time in order to be happy. That's where we get happiness. And so that idea that even the idea of being a good consumer, buying plenty of things, is also equated in recent years with being a good citizen. You're not a good citizen if you're not buying things, because you're not helping the economy. The economy depends on people upgrading all of their things, buying new cars, buying new computers, buying new cell phones, buying new everything, new lawnmowers, new whatever it is, buying new ones, even if the old one is perfectly good. No, but you have to buy a new one, because then you are being a good citizen. So the association of consumerism with being a good citizen, the founders of this country, what to speak of other countries, but speaking in our present context, the founders of this country would have been horrified that citizenship was equated with buying products. That would have horrified the founders. They warned so much against the takeover of the country by corporations. The founders were very afraid of the corporate takeover of the country, the corporate takeover of democracy, which really began in a big way in this country after the Civil War. North and South, both. And but again, that has happened. So we have to be careful what messages we allow to come into the mind. We have to be discriminating. I remember as a kid, when we lived next door, until I was 8, we lived next door to my paternal grandparents. In fact, my paternal grandfather had given my parents the house we lived in at that time as a wedding present when they got married. And so we lived there for the first 8 years until we moved to another state, spending a lot of time at my grandparents' house. Then when the television would be on and advertising would come on, my grandfather getting so angry at the commercials, saying, "Oh, that's all nonsense. What kind of nonsense?" Arguing with the television commercials. And at the time I thought, what's wrong with Grandpa? But now I understand that he had come from a generation where that advertising had not been so prevalent that you just watch it and accept it. You just sort of become passive to it. But he was still resisting the advertising messages and the ridiculous messages, which the ridiculous associations they were making between a product and a particular type of happiness or self-actualization or whatever. So again, we look to the outer world for our fulfillment. But this verse says, no, don't be overjoyed at getting that which is dear to you, and don't be dejected at getting that which is undear. That is, how do we do that? Let me approach it that way. How do we do that in a practical sense for ordinary people like us, people who are not born on lotuses and with the mind of an incarnation of God or whatever, that mind from childhood itself is going towards God? How do people like us, how do we do that? First, by understanding that there's a higher joy in a stability of mind. That the mind which is constantly being buffeted by the waves of the world, that's the unstable mind, and that's the mind which causes us so much misery. And to see that there's a link between pleasure and pain. You can't have one without the other. That if you have pleasure, you're going to have pain also, because the two are part of the same thing, just like heat and cold. If you go and live in North Dakota, your idea of heat and cold will be very different from after you've been there for a while. The first few months you'll be absolutely miserable all the time because it's so cold. But after a few months, your whole idea of heat and cold changes. And so I know someone who moved to the Virgin Islands and spent his adult life living in the Virgin Islands because he didn't like cold and the Virgin Islands were warm. But after living there for many years, he told me that if the temperature goes below 80, I feel freezing. So what would he do in North Dakota? Again, our sense of pleasure and pain and everything adapts itself to the circumstances we're in, but you get both. You get both. You can't have one without the other. And so realizing that, and realizing also, as I said before, that the stable state of mind is where happiness lies. When the mind is calm, when the mind is still, that's a superior state of mind. Then we can begin to realize that, okay, when a pleasurable thing comes to me, I don't have to say no to it, and I don't have to not enjoy it. If I get something that I love, and I don't have to spit on it or anything like that, to accept it, enjoy it for what it is, but know that this is just a sensory pleasure. It just comes and it goes. So it's here one moment, it's gone the next moment. And tied to this is pain also. And so when difficult experiences come, realize that this is just life. This is just life. This is the way things go. It's a strange thing that it takes most of us the better part of a lifetime to realize that everybody is in the same boat. For school kids where acceptance by their peers is so important, I don't know how many times I've seen the same thing, that when we were school kids, we thought everybody else had it together. Everybody else was fine. Everybody else was, had an ideal life, and only I am sort of somehow a misfit or something. Everybody else, including the popular kids that everybody wanted to be, they were thinking the same thing. They were thinking the same thing. And it's a great surprise when you spent your childhood thinking that, why am I not in the in-group? Why am I not like them? Why am I, sort of a misfit or whatever? And then you find out that some of the popular kids were thinking the same thing about you. Why can't I be like him? And so it's such a strange phenomenon. I remember when I was 13, I think it was, in our church, used to go to the youth group among other church activities. And in the youth group one night, our minister had come to talk to us. Usually we had a leader of the youth group who was a volunteer, but this evening the minister came, Sunday evening. And he was talking to us about the difficulties of growing up and what we had to, how we had to face difficulties in growing up, and realizing that growing up is not so easy and everything. And he said something that just made no sense to me at all at the time. And I just thought that, this makes no sense. He said, now you feel that you have to be in with the other kids, that it's so important to be accepted and to wear the right clothes and do the right things and to be accepted and to be liked and all of that. When you get older, you see that doesn't mean anything. It's absolutely worthless. What does he mean? What kind of nonsense is that? Of course, it's that's everything. Fitting in, being accepted, that's everything. How in the world could it be? And I respected him. I knew that he was a wise man. And I thought that, he at least he thinks he's making sense, but I sure can't see the sense to it. And of course, I grew up and saw that he made perfect sense. That intense desire to fit in, to be accepted by your peers and everything, which children, especially up through the teen years, is so important. That's absolutely worthless. It's just it can't be helped as part of growing up, but in the larger picture, it's absolutely worthless. So, again, realizing that pleasure and pain are tied together. You can't have one without the other. Realizing that a stable state of mind is a superior happiness. That the excited state of mind, the excited sort of the party mentality, that you go to a party and it's all so wonderful and stimulating and all of that, and you get high on just the vibe of the party and everything, you realize, no, being calm and stable-minded is far superior to that. That's not really happiness. We only make ourselves think that that's happiness. No, this is much better. And so, stira buddhiya sambudho, the one whose buddhi, whose mind, the higher mind, is steady. and who therefore is free from delusion, free from the delusion thinking that everything of value is out there, and that I have to adjust to the outer world. I have to get my sense of value from the outer world. I have to get my happiness from the outer world. I have to get my sense of self, who I am, from what the outer world tells me about myself. That no, I have to be free of that, and then I will be asambudho. I'll be free from delusion. Of course, there are higher states of freedom from delusion, ultimately freedom from the delusion that there is a world separate from myself, realizing that there is a perfect unity, and I am that unity, as is everybody else and everything else. That is even higher. So the Brahmavid, one who is the knower of Brahman, who has realized that unity, Brahmani sthitaha, is established in Brahman. There, it's a perfect establishment. Now, Madhusudana says in this verse, to take, I want to give a Sanskrit grammar lesson, but just say something about the grammar that Madhusudana points out. This na prarishyet and nodvijet. That's a prarishyet and udvijet with that eight ending and the third person singular. That is, those are the endings of what are called vitiling. That is what should be done. It's a mood of the present tense which says this should be done. So you should not delight in getting the deer, and you should not be dejected by getting that which is, or one should not be dejected by getting that which is unpleasant. So he says that the verse is talking about one whose mind is established in Brahman. So for them, there's no should. It's a natural state. They are already established in that state. So why should he use vitiling? That is the sense of should, what should be done. He said that's because he's speaking to Arjuna, and through Arjuna speaking to us. That's what we should do as a practice. That the Brahmavit, the knower of Brahman, is established in that, and that there's no should for such a one because they're established in the truth. There's no separation from the truth. So where's there a sense? There's not even a sense of being a doer or an enjoyer. So where is there any injunction to do something? But the injunction is for us to do it as a practice. So we should learn, again, when something pleasant comes, don't throw it away, don't spit on it, don't just accept it and take it, but just take it for what it is and know it for what it is. As Sri Ramakrishna says, giving a common example, he says that if you have a great desire for rasagola, the Indian sweet, and you can't control it and you're going crazy, I've just got to have a rasagola now, then eat one. Don't torture yourself, eat one. But while you're eating it, just to notice that it's just sweet. It's just a sensation on the tongue. That's all it is. But the mind somehow thinks that I'm going to get ultimate fulfillment by eating this rasagola. No, it's sweet, it's pleasant, but that's all that it is. That's all that it is. And so with all of the pleasures that we have in life, you don't have to try to tear yourself away from things. You don't have to force yourself to do things. No. In the midst of the experience itself, and especially for people living in the world with families and responsibilities and all of that, especially for such, do the things that you do the things that you have to do, but just take them for what they are and notice them for what they are. And then you'll realize that it's no big deal. These things are no big deal. And yes, next time again, you have this tremendous desire for a rasagola or a pantwa or whatever your favorite sweet is, or other thing that you like so much. So to get it again, have it, but again, just remember that, or just notice what it is. It's just a sensation. And when you get painful experiences also, notice it for what it is. It's just an experience, another experience. It's no big deal. All of us here have been through so many difficult experiences. So many difficult experiences, all of us here. There's nobody here, and there's nobody out there either, that hasn't been through all kinds of difficult experiences. And you could say, well, what about the baby? The baby just came through birth, and you don't think that was a difficult experience? Certainly that was a difficult experience. So everybody's been through difficult experiences. But you're still here. You're still here. And so, as you couldn't avoid difficult experiences in the past, you can't avoid them in the future. So as they come, just accept them. Again, don't look for them. Don't try to make bad things happen so that you can make yourself miserable. No. But you don't have to do that because they'll come anyway. Just wait for them to come. And when they come, just, it's just another experience. Just another experience. No big deal. So he translates it here, a knower of Brahman who is established in Brahman, Brahmani stitaha, should have his intellect steady, stira buddhi, and should not be deluded, asambudho. He should not get delighted by getting what is desirable, na prahishyet, nor become dejected by getting what is undesirable, no dvijet, prapya chapriyam, having attained that which is undesirable. So this is a very practical, well, the whole Gita is practical. When the Gita tells the ideal state, the state of a knower of Brahman, which, yes, that seems like and it is, a very, very high state. A very high state, and it may seem very far from our present state. Actually, it's not far at all. It's right here, there for us to have, but we somehow can't find our way to get to it, and so that makes it seem very far away, and seem in practical terms it is far away. If not in ultimate terms, it's not far away at all. But even when the Gita is talking about such exalted states of absolute liberation and absolute freedom and living in eternal bliss, that also has a practical side to it. Otherwise, Sri Krishna wouldn't be talking about it. The practical side is to let us know that that's where we are going. That's what we're aiming towards. That's what the goal of human life is. And that's what the goal of the process of reincarnation is. Reincarnation is not about having a good time in different lifetimes. That's the frequent Western idea of reincarnation, that, I wonder what I could be next time. And I wonder what I was in the past. One of the things that you notice that among many Western people, not all, but many Western people who take an interest in reincarnation and start talking about what they think they were in their past lives, almost everybody was an Egyptian pharaoh in their lifetime. There weren't that many Egyptian pharaohs that everybody could have been an Egyptian pharaoh. And nobody thinks that in my last life I was a garbage collector or something like that. So it's this romanticized idea of reincarnation. So the purpose of reincarnation is not to, oh boy, I wonder what I get to be next time. No, the purpose of reincarnation is like, what was that movie with Bill? No, an American movie, Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. That's a very, very, very good movie about reincarnation. So that's the Groundhog Day is the purpose of reincarnation, though that at a lower, more ordinary level. But we keep coming back until we get it right. That's the purpose of reincarnation, not to have a great time, but to learn what we need to learn. So then verse 21 says, Bahyasparasheshva saktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. So one whose mind is unattached to external objects, that is, Bahyasparasheshva saktatma. So the asaktatma, the one whose mind is unattached. Here, atma means self, but self in the sense of the mind. Again, in the Upanishads and in the Gita, atma means self, but it means self at different levels. Like most people think that they are the body, and so they are dehatma. They are the body self. And then people who are more mental, then they realize that I am a mental self. My sense of identity is in my mind. And I have a body, I work through a body, but my sense of identity is in the mind. And then a spiritual person realizes that, no, I am the infinite self, the self which is consciousness itself. So here, Atma is used as the mind. So one who is whose mind is unattached in the midst of bahya sparsheshu, in the midst of external contacts. Sparsha, of course, means touching normally, but here it means all types of contact. Just as in English, contact usually means physical contact that is touching, but contact can be the contact of the eyes with their objects or contact of the ears with their objects. So here, contact means the contact of the senses with their objects. So one whose mind is unattached in the midst of sense experience, that's the meaning. The sense experience which is external, the contact with the external objects. And Vindatyatmani Yatsukam discovers in themselves that which is happiness itself. Or as he says here, one whose mind is unattached to external objects gets in the internal organ that which is bliss. So Vindati Atmani Yatsukam, finds within himself, or here he says self still means the mind, finds within the mind that which is real happiness. So one who is unattached in the midst of sensory experience, external sensory experience. External means what? What about internal sensory experience? I feel things within the body. I have the experience of internal sensory experience also. That also to such a one is external experience. That is, it's external to consciousness. Whatever happens within the body, within the outer world, or within the body, or even within the mind, that is external. Because I am the light which illumines everything. I'm not that which is illuminated. So one whose mind is unattached to external objects gets in the internal organ, or gets within themselves, is another interpretation as I would prefer, that which is bliss. So Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukhamakshayam Ashnute. Such a person who is Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, whose mind is joined, Yuktatma, whose mind is joined to Brahma Yoga, to union with Brahman, whose mind is engaged, mind is attached, and mind is joined to union with Brahman. So such a person whose mind is absorbed in Brahman, it doesn't necessarily mean a realized soul here. But one who is an aspirant whose mind has succeeded in establishing the mind in the thought of Brahman, Sukham Akshayam Ashnute, attains to, enjoys the eternal bliss. So if we can get to the point where the mind focuses on God alone, on the self alone, on Brahman alone, the impersonal, whichever way our path leads us, such a one eventually gets through that, through being Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, through being, having the mind joined to union with Brahman, attains to eternal happiness. Eternal happiness. Our happiness here is always subject to reaction. And as you go in spiritual life, you begin to notice that even in the midst of happiness, there is anxiety. Even in the midst of happiness, there's anxiety. Once you realize that, an unpleasant thing happens at first. Eventually, you realize that, no, this is just the way it always was, but I succeeded in deluding myself, so I didn't notice it. That is, when you notice that even in happiness, that there is anxiety and unpleasantness even there, then you realize, well, gosh, I can't even be happy anymore. I can't even be happy anymore. Before I used to be carefree and I can be happy. No, nothing has changed. It's the same experience. It's just that you're noticing experiences for what they are. And so there's a transitional period in spiritual life which can be uncomfortable. But again, remember that that's not because the situation has changed. It's just because you've realized what the situation is. And when you do that, then you find that the going from swinging between pleasant and unpleasant experiences is not as devastating as it was before. Before, when you thought that, oh, this is real happiness, I'm really happy, oh, I'm just blissed out right now because I got what I wanted and everything. And then later a reaction comes or a painful experience comes and then you're destroyed. Well, then once you realize that, well, no, when a pleasant experience comes, it's just an experience. And when an unpleasant experience comes, it's just another experience. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Life is about something else, something higher than these two things. Then once you begin to get oriented that way, then you find that, no, there is a superior joy in the midst of that, superior to the joy that you had before, because the joy before was always mixed with anxiety and reaction and unhappiness and so forth. Now you're beginning to see something which is outside of the two. So one whose mind is unattached to external objects gets in the internal organ that which is bliss. With his internal organ fixed in, and again, internal organ just means mind. With his mind fixed in self-absorption in Brahman, he acquires undecaying bliss. Undecaying bliss. Look at the life of Sri Ramakrishna. And recently I was reading his book, I mentioned it before also. Recently I read the book Reminiscences of Holy Mother. Such a beautiful book. And one of the things that struck me, I'd read these things before, but this one thing had not struck me in the way that it struck me now. That Holy Mother was always in a state of bliss. Usually when you read about Holy Mother's life, it looks outwardly very plain and simple, and she was in the midst of so many problems, and her relatives always causing all kinds of problems. And so you read about that, and you think, oh, what a saint she was that she put up with all of this. But this time when I read it, I saw that the people giving their reminiscences spoke about how in the midst of all of that, the Holy Mother was in such a state of bliss all of the time. Sister Nivedita said that when she would go to Mother's house at in Calcutta, that it just seemed like everything was bathed in bliss. Everything was so joyful, and the Mother herself was always bubbling with joy. And so Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, were in that state where the bliss was akshayam, was undecaying, was undiminishing. It's often been said, I don't know who first said it, but it's a very good statement that Ramakrishna is the Ananda avatar, the incarnation of bliss itself. Ramakrishna is the incarnation of bliss itself. And once we see that, then we see that everything about him was blissful. And it's a wonderful thing, but the same of Holy Mother as well. What about Swamiji? Swamiji also, that was his natural state, but Sri Ramakrishna locked that away from Swamiji. And that was why there was so much drama in Swamiji's life. So much drama in Swamiji's life. So Swamiji's natural state was that. And he also was inwardly joyful. But because that ultimate experience was locked away from him, as Sri Ramakrishna said, until he finished the work for which he had taken birth, he couldn't get back to it fully. And so that set up a tension in Swamiji's life where he was always trying to get back to that. That was his natural state. That was where he had come from. That's what he had realized, and that was what his natural state was. And yet that was kept away from him by the tremendous power of Sri Ramakrishna and the Divine Mother. And so in Swamiji's life, you see this tremendous drama in his life, where his natural state was to go back to that. But he had so much work to do. So his work was to change the whole course of human history, which we don't see yet, except for those who have eyes to see the beginnings of that. But that was what his whole purpose was. and was to change the whole course of human history, to change the whole course of human life, the human culture, human civilization around the world. And for that, he had to suffer. So, verse 22 says, somehow it seems like, yeah, so anyway, I'll just read 21 again. One whose mind is unattached to external objects gets in the mind that which is bliss. With his internal organ fixed in self-absorption and Brahman, he acquires undecaying bliss. And then 22 says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. So, yehi samsparshaja bhoga. Those which are enjoyments which come from, which are born from contact of the senses with their objects. So those enjoyments which come from contact of the senses with their objects, dukkha yonaya evate. They are the sources, dukkha yoni. They are the sources of misery. They are indeed eva. They are indeed the sources of misery. So those enjoyments which come from the contact of the senses with their objects, they are the sources of misery. And so again, what do we do with that? We understand it and observe ourselves, observe our lives so that we understand it deeply. And again, it doesn't mean that you stop enjoying things which are enjoyable. It means that you understand what things are, understand what's actually happening. This is not, again, Vedanta is not about imposing a severe morality on people because certain things are bad. No, it's not that at all. Just notice what it is that's right in front of you. That's all that it is. Notice what is right in front of you. Notice the nature of things as it is. That's all you have to do. Swami Vivekananda used to say that people ask me, what should I give up in order to become spiritual? I say, don't give up anything. Make it so hot for nature that nature gives you up. So how do you make it hot for nature? Just by seeing what's right in front of you, seeing your daily experience for what it is. I've said on other occasions that people used to come to Swami Satprakashananda, a great Swami, who established the center in St. Louis, passed away many years ago, one of the several people I met who had seen Swami Vivekananda. He had seen him when he was 12 years old in Dhaka, and now Bangladesh. People would ask him, Swami, what happens after Nirvikalpa Samadhi? And he would say, don't worry about what happens after Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That is a very abstracted state. Don't worry about that. That will come when it comes. Just be a good person. Be a good husband or wife. Be a good father or mother. Be a good citizen. Be a good worker. Do your work well. Lead a basic moral life. That is, be a good person. And if you just do that, he said, then you'll find in time that there's not that much here to be had. There's not that much to be here to be had. It's the restlessness of mind which makes us think that, there's so much to enjoy that I've got to go out and grab, and I've got to grab it before everybody else grabs it, before there's nothing left to enjoy. It's restlessness of mind that makes us think that. If you're just a good person, you just lead a normal life, just try to be a good person, do the right thing as you understand the right thing. That changes with time, but do the right thing as you understand the right thing. And gradually you find that, no, there's not that much to be had in life. Just by being a good person and just observing your own life, you find there's not that much to be had. So accept the experiences that come to you, good and bad. And so when it says here that those enjoyments that result from contact of the senses with their objects are verily sources of sorrow. That's not saying that they should be a source of sorrow and you should be miserable. No, it's saying that just look at what you're seeing every day, and you'll find that that's the truth of things. That's all you have to do. Don't believe anything just because somebody says to believe it. Don't believe in the theories just because it's a nice sounding theory. Just observe. Just see what's in your life in front of you, and you'll see that this is true. Adyantavanta Kaunteya. O Kaunteya, O Arjuna, they are Adyantavanta. Adi, Anta, Vanta. Vanta means the plural of Vat, possessed of Adi and Anta. These contacts of the senses are possessed of a beginning and an end. They come and they go. So when you are getting something which is delightful, just remember, okay, this is going to end. I'll take it for what it is. That's okay. I don't have to not enjoy it. But I'll just take it for what it is, and I know it's going to end. So I'm not going to get upset when it ends, because it's going to end. And when there's a difficult experience, a painful experience or other difficult experience, know that that also has an end. Okay, it's there for now, but everything has an end. Everything here has an end. And so let me bear it for now, because it's come and I have no choice. I can resist it, I can hate it, I can get angry, I can get all worked up about it, and it's still there. It's still there. So again, it doesn't mean that if you have a painful condition that you shouldn't go to the doctor, you shouldn't get some medicine or something. Yes, do what you need to do. But there are situations that come, and in spite of whatever you want to do to get rid of it, they last for a time, or sometimes for a long time. So then what choice do you have? Just accept it. You have no choice. If you have a choice, then do something to fix it, yes. But even then, know that this is the nature of life. So, adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. The wise don't delight in such experiences. The wise don't delight in such experiences. The contact of the senses with their objects. Just take it for what it is. So, Madhusudana gave a very long commentary on verse 22. He went into, Madhusudana was, obviously, he was an expert at the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, as well as in Vedanta, and also in the Vaishnava scriptures, and also in Nyaya. Madhusudana was a great genius and a Renaissance genius of that time in Orthodox Hindu thought. That is, he was a scholar in Nyaya, and studied Vedanta only in order to defeat the Vedanta from the standpoint of Nyaya, the logicians. But then he became convinced that the Vedanta was true, and so he became a Vedantin, and then mastered the Vedanta scriptures. And before any of that, before becoming a Nyaya philosopher and then a Vedantin, he had been a Vaishnava devotee. And there's some traditions which say that he even met Sri Chaitanya or one of Sri Chaitanya's disciples. But anyway, he was a great scholar. So here in this and in several other places in his Gita commentary, you see that he was a master of the Yoga Sutras as well. Here he talks about the kleshas, the pain-bearing obstructions, and how they work with the sense experience and cause misery and all of that. And then he discusses Vyasa's commentary on the Yoga Sutras, where Vyasa says that the mind of the yogi, the mind of the accomplished yogi, the great yogi, the yogi who has risen high spiritually, the mind of the yogi becomes as sensitive as the eyeball. Just as a spider web, it touches you on the skin or on the leg or somewhere, it doesn't bother you. But if it hits the eye, then it irritates the eye. So the eye is so sensitive that a little speck of dust or a cobweb or something is enough to irritate it. And so the mind of the yogi is like that. Now, what does that mean? Because it's already, Krishna has said that you shouldn't get elated and you shouldn't get disturbed. And what Vyasa is talking about is that the yogi becomes so sensitive to delusion that he won't allow delusive thoughts into the mind, because he realizes that no, these thoughts are the cause of all of my problems. Let me keep away from these. Keep away from these. So that's what he goes in. That and associated things he goes into in this long commentary. So I won't go into verse 23. We'll take verse 23, which continues the idea. So we'll do that and on to the end of the chapter next class. Let me see if there's any one question. Yes, Jayant has a question. Jitan. Right here.
Maharaj, going back to verse 520.
Okay.
So that one, is it not the difference between the successful, like what you in Bengali call safalata, versus fulfillment? In this one, you have the material objects and all that is more or less as an indication of the successful than the fulfillment. Suppose an ordinary person having a good life as such, not having the material object, his life can be fulfilled, right?
No, I'm not quite sure that I understand the question.
Successful
Yes.
versus fulfillment.
Oh, a successful life versus a fulfilled life, huh?
Yeah. Is it not indicating more or less like the successful life that you are leading? Fulfilled can be by the content of the mind, right? If I'm content.
Yes. Fulfillment comes in a variety of ways. Fulfillment comes by what we consider valuable and real. So if I consider success in life, having a success in life in my work or family or whatever, as the best thing, then yes, that is fulfillment to me. Or if I consider social honor to be the best thing in life, then if I have social honor, then I will feel fulfilled. If I consider learning to be the best thing in life, then if I become learned and am recognized as learned, then I feel fulfillment. So fulfillment is dependent on what I think is best. And so what is desirable also changes, dependent on what I consider to be fulfillment. So if I am only, to me, the greatest reality is good food, then I'll feel fulfilled only if I get good food to eat. If, however, I think that making a scientific discovery is the greatest fulfillment for me, then I'll be fulfilled if I am successful at my scientific work. But I'm not sure how you're tying that to the verse. So I'm still not quite sure.
No, suppose the example that you gave, suppose a scientist.
Yes.
He is trying all his effort and all, but he may not be able to reach what is the final supposed to be.
Yes.
So he is not successful in that way, but his life-wise, his life is fulfilled as his quest for the research and all, right?
Fulfillment comes as an internal experience.
Internal experience.
It's an internal experience. I feel fulfilled because I have done what I wanted to do. I have gotten what I wanted to get. I have done what I wanted to do. I am who I wanted to be. That's what gives us a sense of being fulfilled. I had a sense of lack. I had a sense that I need something to be happy. And then I attain to that. I either get it, or I attain it, or I become it, or do it, and then I feel fulfilled. So fulfillment is the
internal.
Is the internal, and it's the sense that I have done that which I wanted to do. And so there can be little sense of fulfillment. I'm hungry, and so I eat, and I feel fulfilled just in that sense for the moment. Or life fulfillment, that I wanted to be such and such, and I became that, and I feel fulfilled. Yes. But even that doesn't that is not a permanent state. That even people who get what they wanted, it's not permanent. So fulfillment is, that kind of fulfillment is not enough. So as I've used the example before, because it's a very good one that we all know, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, they should be fulfilled because they went into business and did so many things and were so extraordinarily successful. But there's never enough. There's never enough. And so somebody like Warren Buffett, he's admirable because, especially admirable because he still leads a very simple life. He still lives in the same house he lived in, I don't know, 50 years or 60 years ago. Simple house. If you see a picture of it, it's just a very ordinary house that lower middle class person might live in. And he does ordinary things and doesn't try to lead the life of a multi-billionaire. He just leads an ordinary life. So a man like that has more of a sense of fulfillment because he wasn't aiming to be the richest man in the world and to lord over other people. He just was a man who was very successful. But you find that people who are very wealthy, usually there's no end to their desire for more wealth. Probably, I don't know, because I've never met Warren Buffett, but reading about him, the little bit that I have, probably if he had not been so successful, he would have been as happy as he is now. His happiness was not dependent on he just happened to be very good at investments and he made a killing. But his sense of self-worth was not dependent on that. But most people it is. And so, but even for someone like Warren Buffett, just wanting to lead a good, happy, ordinary life, he has his struggles just like everybody else. He has his lack of fulfillment just like everybody else, in the sense of even in ordinary life, the vicissitudes of ordinary life. So ordinary life is not enough for anybody. Not enough for anybody. And so the fulfillments that we can get here in human life, those are small fulfillments. And yes, they're not insignificant, and not that we should try to be unsuccessful, no, but we should recognize that when we get honors and when we have success in things, that take it in stride, accept it, but realize it for what it is. Realize that this too is just another experience. Just another experience. So that's why over and over again in the Gita, Sri Krishna says, especially in chapter 2, but not restricted to chapter 2, but over and over in chapter 2, he says that we should be the same in success and failure. Be the same in success and failure. Both have the same value to the soul. Same value to the soul. Because both give us experience. Both help to wake us up if we're paying attention. Okay, so we'll stop here. So let me give a closing chant, and then I'll give announcements. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite being, the fullness of this universe has come. And yet that being remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe. So for announcements,